Welcome in to the Dillon Hildreth Show. I'm Dillon Hildreth, and today we got ourselves a debate. The debate of a lifetime. Kind of. So, as we all know, college football so desperately wants to expand to a 16-team playoff. The question is the format. I have the way that I would do it, and I brought in the smartest guy that I know who disagrees with me for some reason. Can't imagine why. What's up, Joe?
Yeah, what's going on?
All right.
I just think, listen, we can agree to disagree at the end of this. It's fine. We're all friends here.
Maybe. We'll see. You should know it's in the gospel. I'm always right. Most everybody else is wrong. But anyway,
Mm.
so we both have our separate ideas for the college football playoff format. Put in the comments below. If you're watching on YouTube, I think there's a comment section on podcasting. I think. If there is, put who you agree with after we get done with the arguments. So, my format that I would go with for the 16-team college football playoff is 4 automatics from the Big Ten, 4 automatics from the SEC, 2.5 from the ACC, 2.5 from the Big 12, 1 for the group of 5, and then 3 at larges. Joe, what's yours?
Yeah, listen, I'm in favor of the 5 and 11. I feel like the breakdown by conference, for me doesn't work. I don't know if you want me to go into as to why I don't think it'll work. But I'm in favor of the 5 and 11, me myself.
Yeah, I mean, so let I'll walk you through a little bit of my thought process behind it. It is it's a few things. One, the Big Ten and the SEC, they are clearly the dominant conferences. They get the most teams into in the playoff. They have the most NFL draft picks. They get the most top recruits. They have the best coaching, and they're going to be the bigger conferences by the time the musical chairs stop shuffling. Those so they get more teams automatically in. The ACC and the Big 12, I put 2.5 because you'll get the champion, the runner up, and then you have an opportunity on championship weekend to have the third place teams of each the ACC and the Big 12 play each other as a play-in game to get that last spot. And then you have the at-larges for potentially Notre Dame and the group of 5. Because for some reason we got to throw those guys in. And for a few reasons, the main, most, and foremost, it takes the decision making out of the committee's hands and it gets decided on the field. You don't have to leave it up to the athletic director of Texas State on whether it's going to be uh, Tennessee or North Carolina getting into the playoffs. It all gets settled on the field. That's my biggest proponent of why I think my format is the best of what it should be.
Okay, I hear that there. Um, what I would say, as far as kind of like a counterpoint to that is, there are years where I look at the ACC and the Big 12, and I think to myself, do they even deserve more than one team? Like I just to be honest, like you just made the discussion on how the SEC and the Big Ten far and away are the better conferences, and I don't disagree with that. I 100% don't disagree with that. I do believe, based on the current last landscape, pre, how they were doing the money as far as like having a salary cap and how NIL was working and how that was running rampant and things of that nature. Prior to the April ruling and things like that, how it was working before, it just it makes sense that the SEC and the Big Ten were very heavy, as far as participation, just because of them having the most money, then ergo leading to the most talent, ergo leading to them, being at the end, having a representative. So I completely get that. Where I have the trouble with, again, is like I said, for those weaker conferences, to give them an automatic bid for me is kind of like, come on, like what are we doing? What if like we have one ACC team with one or two losses and then the rest all have three or four, and you're going to give two automatic bids to that conference, two automatic bids to the Big 12. What if that happens in the Big 12 also? Like you have teams with a metric ton of losses, right? In comparison to the conferences that you highlighted. What if that happens and then we're giving a second team to each of those conferences and we're like, should they be here? I don't know if they should be here. Um, Now I will say Clemson kind of snuck in there, right? Nobody thought Clemson was going to be in the championship game, so they couldn't have foresaw that. Oh crap! Like Clemson sneaks in there, and then all of a sudden the second ACC team gets in there because Clemson just so happened to, win the championship and get the automatic bid. So I get that aberration, right? But we all know if Clemson would have lost, there wouldn't have been two ACC teams in the tourney. I think we can all agree on that. Like
Yeah.
there was very very hard speculation. Alabama takes that spot, and then we're only seeing one ACC team there. So that for me kind of like was an aberration. But I think we can all agree that there really should have been, absent a Clemson win and getting the auto bid, there should have only been one ACC team. And I feel like more often than not, there probably should only be one ACC team, maybe two Big 12 teams, maybe, in which your 2.5 does come into play then, if that happens. But I just feel like more often than not, these ACC teams, these Big 12 teams, there should only be one representative there. And whoever wins that championship game should be there. And I don't think we should be giving the runner-ups just an easy entry into the into the tourney just because they belong to one of the Power Four. And we use the power loosely. It's really a power two, and then the rest.
Yeah, I do get that. But thing is, when it gets to that, when you're deciding on 11 different teams or 11 teams to get in, that leaves a lot of room for speculation, and it pretty much takes that game out of the field and into the boardroom. The ACC knows without a shadow of a doubt their best two teams are getting in. The Big 12 knows, and the Big 12 they have fallen victim of this a couple of times. Of they just end up eating each other because there's not a whole lot of separation between 1 and 8. So by default, they end up only
It's
getting
the best of the mids.
Uh, well,
It's the best of the mids.
Here's the thing though.
Who can out mid the other team?
Here's the thing though. I don't think the Big 12 is super far off of the Big 10 or the SEC, especially with Arizona State. I mean, they took Texas all the way to overtime, and they're building something special in Tempe. Oklahoma State, they always have a little bit of something going, along with Utah. Yeah, they were down last year, but it happens, especially at a place like Utah. But you have Texas Tech; they're on the rise, and and to have and they really end up eating each other, causing only one team to be able to go in. The SEC not quite as top heavy as the Big Ten. There's not quite as much fluff in the SEC as there is in the Big Ten, but nonetheless, you're penalizing the conference for being so deep, and to get at least two minimum into the playoff, I think it is the right move, and like I said, it and it takes the decision making out of the boardroom. That's my biggest thing. And then on top of that, just imagine you got Georgia, Texas, and we'll say Texas A&M. They're kind of broken away from the pack, and then you have a dogfight between Tennessee, South Carolina. All those games coming towards the end of the season, they matter. Whereas in the 11 at large bid model, all those teams, they're pretty comfortably in.
Yeah, you know what? The funny thing is, the the people in like ACC and the Big 12, they're arguing on your behalf for a completely different reason. So they're arguing against you for a completely different reason. I'm arguing that they're not going to have enough teams to deserve to have more than one. And they're arguing that they're going to have enough teams to deserve more than two. And that's their reason for not liking your version of the event, is because they think they might get more than two teams that deserve end up deserving to go. Which is
So,
why they're against your side of the fence. And I'm just kind of like, that's crazy. I can't
so
imagine a scenario where the ACC would get three teams in there. I can't imagine it at all.
yeah, I mean, history says that this actually helps the ACC and the Big 12. But what I would say is that you also have the at large bids. You got, I think, three in my model. If you cut the halves off, then you would have three in the at large bid, with Notre Dame taking one of them. So yeah, there is that opportunity to get more, and I'd rather have the boardroom decide 15 and 16 rather than six on, because that's essentially what that would be. And another thing that I would also be okay with is if they did in the ACC, instead of having like an ACC championship game, you have two playing games. The number one team in the ACC plays the number four team. The number two plays number three at on campus of one and two. That would be my other proposal.
Hmm.
And yeah, you wouldn't have like an outright ACC champion, but the fact of the matter is the conference championships, they don't really matter anymore. So I think this is the best way to build excitement, have more meaningful games, and and it opens the door for those number three, number four teams and the ACC and the Big 12 to have that one last data point to maybe be able to knock off the Goliath and get in with that auto bid, and then the number one team in the Big 12 is going to have to rely on a potential at large. So I just think it creates more opportunity for teams to actually get in and actually be settled on the field.
Well, I mean, and we've talked about this, where I've seen it talked about, as far as like college basketball is concerned, in terms of the future absences of surprise teams making runs because of the landscape of college sports right now. My question to you is, how do you think the landscape's going to change? When NIL gets more regulated, and this the advent of there being a 20 million cap for schools to go ahead and kind of like run their business, so to speak, because we we've seen how how Bill Belichick is kind of like operating um, the North Carolina landscape, just pretty much treating it like a pro team and saying, "Hey, we have X money, and this is how we're going to allocate it, like we would allocate it in the pros." How do you think that will kind of like balance the odds, so to speak, in terms of the landscape and how teams will be able to continually produce talent year to year?
So if there ends up being like that 20, 30, 40 million dollar cap, what it's going to end up doing is it's going to rein in Michigan, Ohio State, Texas, the Texas schools, and it's gonna it's gonna essentially create more parity, and that way Michigan and Texas can't go and just here's 12 million, come play with us. It's not going to allow them to do that, and you're already seeing it right now within recruiting that the everything's beginning to rein back into a little bit of normalcy, well, as normal as it can be out here, where
Right.
NIL is no longer once again the number one driver for players wanting to go to on where they go to school. You're seeing on the recruiting trail relationships matter again, and it seems like one of those situations where the floodgates were open. You get that sugar high. Everybody's going, trying to collect the bag. Well, everybody's trying to figure out how to operate this landscape. And now that it's been in place for a couple of years, now that sugar craze, that sugar rush, it's beginning to come back down, and things are beginning to return to normal ish, as like I said, as
Mm.
normal as it can be. So yeah, I mean,
I think for me, I personally, and this could be just kind of like the old school in me. I miss the days when guys sat behind guys and they just waited their turn. And let's use Alabama as an example, right? Yeah, that famous photo that gets dropped in every now and again probably got dropped in as soon as the Eagles won the Super Bowl when they had Mac Jones, Tua, and Jalen Hurts in the same picture. And there was a time where that happens. There was a next up behind the next up behind the next up, and there wasn't I'm not waiting to be the next up. I'm out of here. I mean, it's a miracle that in this day and age, a guy like Arch Manning, you know, doesn't think to himself, man, I could start for 35 teams right now if I just left. I could just start for I could pick where I wanted to play. If I wanted to. And no, he's old school to the bone. He's a legit Manning. He waited his turn behind Quinn. Quinn moved on to the next level, and here it is. Now it's his, chance to go ahead and earn it, which I mean, God, they're talking about preseason Heisman hopeful, all that kind of jazz, because Manning, right? You'd think.
yeah,
But I miss those days. I miss those days, and I'm wondering if we're gonna get back to those days with the current landscape of college football, in which maybe they put some guardrails on this thing, and every team can only spend X amount to where they can't completely stack the deck and they can't completely find um a spot elsewhere because they could only spend X amount of money and it's already allocated to the team because they all have to treat it like it's pro sports. It's got a cap. I can only do this. I have to allocate this to defensive line. I have to allocate this to having a shutdown corner. Same thing that they would do in the pros with how they function a team. I just wonder if we can get back to a point where it's like a guy is not just gonna like Nico, right? Like
yeah,
him in Tennessee, they have that falling out about how much money he's supposed to have, and then he ups and leaves. Like that's a key piece. That's like a key. He is the quarterback of your team, and you think Josh is thinking he's going into the season with his guy from last year, and now he's got to figure it out during spring ball and training camps and things like that. Figure it out as to who's next up. But I'm just wondering if there's going to be that balance now moving forward with the Caps. Do we return to the type of football where there's a guy in waiting that's going to be the next one, and then more continued success for these teams? Like we said, more parity maybe amongst these teams because they can only allocate so much. If that's the case, then if I'm the ACC and I'm the Big 12, maybe I don't want this. Maybe I don't want the 4-4-2-2 because maybe I can get more because eh, the talent's going to be spread out a little bit more as opposed to it being top heavy like we've seen it over the last what 15, 20 years.
I mean, it. The, the thing is with that is kids are gonna inherently take less to go and play for the Georgias, for the Ohio States, for the Michigans, Texas, and be more willing to wait that year, or wait a year, wait 2 years for that opportunity because they know that, and especially in the in this potential cap era, yeah, you can make some good money in college, but the real money is in the pros, and it's gonna it putting a cap on it is ultimately gonna really return to what we were doing before NIL. It's just gonna be kids aren't having to kids are having to choose between, do they get food or do they get gas? I mean, that's that's what it's going to ultimately return to, and you may very well see
Hmm.
some player uprising over it, and we end up in a whole mess again.
Nah, you still think that even with a cap? You don't think they allocate it to where everyone is not starving on the team? Right?
Well, I
You
mean,
still think even with a cap, there's gonna be
so
starving people on the team?
no, no, I'm not saying that. I'm saying like you, okay, so you take in a stray cat and you give it milk every single day. And before then it hadn't eaten in weeks, and you feed it milk every single day until it's back and healthy, and you switch it over to water. Well, it's gonna look at you and be like, "What was this? Where's my milk? I ain't drinking that crap." And so they've come to expect to, okay, we got this far, now can we get to that point and then that point? And
Hmm.
it's just like what we see in the NFL with the set with new deals, the salary cap going up. I mean, it's every single offseason. Whatever quarterback's up for a new deal. It's the biggest deal in NFL history. And I mean, we're gonna end up. It's gonna just end up being the same on the college level. So it's kind of that situation.
Fair enough. But me personally, I love the dramatics, and part of me really, really liked the discourse on social media when teams didn't get in. Like I loved Lane Kiffin getting spicy on the internet. I loved BLM getting spicy right back at him from Illinois. And I'm thinking to myself, man, you know, granted, I'm sure these teams would love to have been in the tournament, but at the same time, kind of like them being spicy on the internet, not getting in. So it's like, oh, if we go to 4-4-2-2, yeah, these guys probably get in um just by the basis of how strong their teams were during the season, and we maybe don't get as much of that discourse online. So I listen, I'm all for chaos. That's something sometimes me and our friend Jordan share. So maybe part of me wants the 5-11 just because we'll get still some more of that. And listen, if we go 5-11 and we have some version of what happened last year, by all means, do your 4-4-2-2-4, and I'm down. But I want to see one more 5-11 and just see what happens, especially since they're going to go with the seeding format where it's actually just one through whatever instead of conference championships, just getting that top four. It's just whatever the CFP says, whatever they're ranked, regardless of conference championship or whatever, that's how they're going to go
Yeah,
in the seeding. So I
yeah,
figured that deserves one more shot doing it that way if they're going to go that route.
yeah. I mean, the fact of the matter is, even in the basketball tournament where they let 75,000 teams in, you're gonna have 75,003 and 74,957 snarking at each other. It's always gonna happen,
That's
no
fair.
matter how many teams you let in. It's just
Yeah.
a matter of, instead of arguing between
No,
McDonald's,
that's
Burger
a fair
King,
argument.
instead of arguing between McDonald's, Burger King,
Yeah.
Wendy's, you're arguing between Carl's Jr. and Hardee's uh and Subway. I mean, that's just
Yeah. That's a valid point. I mean, how many teams were pissed off at North Carolina in March? Like, I get it. West Virginia, Ohio State, all pissed off because North Carolina with that skeezy record and like no tier one wins. Like, I get it. So there's always going to be someone pissed off no matter what the format is. I just like that there's more chaos. There's more chaos when there's less teams and just such a small margin of error, apparently. Um,
yeah, but
yeah.
I mean,
But I mean, listen, at the end of the day, can't lose to teams you shouldn't be losing to. Just
yeah,
that's the lesson for Alabama going into this season. Can't lose teams that you shouldn't be losing to.
yeah. Don't lose to Vanderbilt and Oklahoma. Don't lose to two. Don't
Yeah.
lose to
What was
two,
Oklahoma? 6-6?
6-6. Same as Vandy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. But
it's
let's be honest. Vandy was a very plucky team last year.
yeah,
Very plucky team. They were doing things they hadn't done in years.
yeah.
6-6 is the Super Bowl for them. What is it that Saban said? No one goes to watch them on purpose. Not even their own crowd. It's a home game when they go there.
I'll never
Oh
I'll
man.
I'll never forget. Was going into, I think it was the 2019 I think it was 2017, 18, somewhere in that ballpark. Georgia's first game was at Vanderbilt. And you know how they do this, like, the sky over into the stadium? And
Yeah. The flyover. Yeah.
yeah, so it goes up over the stadium, and you see on the field the Vanderbilt colors, but the bowl was red and black.
All red and black.
There was no goal to be seen.
Where is this game? Where is this game? Don't wait. Don't these teams like carton off only a certain amount for an away team to be in the bowl? Like, I feel like other teams do that. They say, okay, you can sell this many tickets to Georgia, and then these are for us. And maybe they got to a point where it's just like, all right, nobody's buying our tickets. Man, they
Yeah,
couldn't give it away. Like, they couldn't just sold it for like 20
they,
bucks to get any locals to watch the game.
I mean, they probably quartered off some for the student section of Vanderbilt. All 17 people that went to that game. But I mean,
Man.
that's kind of the thing with Vanderbilt. They're in a very tough situation because Nashville is a vacation spot, and so it
Yeah.
makes sense for the opposing teams. Hey, let's fly in on Thursday, enjoy Nashville Friday, go to the game on Saturday, enjoy Nashville Saturday night, and then head home on Sunday.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's just
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I get it. And then if they want to be successful at football, and you if dead set on going to that state and you want to be successful at football, like odds are you're going to Rocky Top, right? So like it's
yeah,
no offense,
yeah,
but
yeah,
it's like tradition says that that's going to be the better program.
yeah. I mean, if you're good and you're in Tennessee, you go and be a Vol. If you get rejected by Tennessee, then
Yeah.
you go to Memphis.
And you know
Yeah.
how they schedule, they're gonna be yeah.
You get
Well,
you get rejected by them,
I mean,
you go to Marshall. You get rejected by them, you go to Mid Tennessee State. You get rejected by them, then you go to Vanderbilt.
that's wild. Middle Tennessee, slightly that's slightly disrespectful. Nothing against Middle Tennessee State, but that's kind of crazy.
Hey,
Like
hey,
that's
I could have been real.
wow.
I could have
You just
been.
went from AAC to Mid American back. That's crazy.
Hey, I could have been real mean
That's
and
ouch.
I could have been real mean and thrown in Chattanooga, but I
Yeah.
didn't. I decided to
Yeah.
be nice.
I personally I want to see. I kind of want to get like a clear clarification, and I'll probably look into this a little bit later when we're off. But like, I kind of want to get kind of like an inkling as to where they're at as far as the guardrails are going, just to kind of like future project. How these teams are going to be top to bottom as far as the balance on their teams. I'm going to be very interested to see the depth in teams moving forward once these guardrails get in place and we start seeing, because I think it's gonna be a minute before we see kind of like which programs are retaining their talent, which ones are gonna have the most depth, because we're gonna test that theory that you had, that teams are gonna want to wait behind other guys if they're going to play for big time programs, and they're allocated X amount of money to be the next one coming. I'm just going to be very interested in these teams allocating, and this is why I'm really really interested in who they're getting as far as like their general managers and stuff, because you're seeing players today getting involved, like they're going back to the alma maters and being assistant general managers to make sure that using their clout to get money coming into their alma maters. And you see what in the basketball, or what Stephen Curry's doing, and being that for Davison, and I believe Max Crosby is also involved in his alma mater. Like players like that, using their clout, using their how they were in the community, things of that money, their money, like how they're um doing that to build their programs. I just want to see year how that changes, kind of like the depth in college football, to see if guys are willing to take a back seat, and or if they're going to continue to find the best place to start, and you know be the guy, be the dude. um because more often than not, and this is why a lot of people will probably lean towards your side of the fence as far as the conference setup and how the playoffs are set up. More often than not, a mid-major, a non-power five team that gets in there, they get slaughtered, and then we're like, should they have been there? And so it would make sense to then limit the amount of chances those guys get in there, um, and just allocate. Make sure the majority are coming from those power conferences, guys that we're going to see in the pro level. Um, it would make sense to go to your format if it's not as balanced um, as I would hope it would be if everyone's using the same money.
Yeah, I mean, well, like it, and it's not even so much about like balance as it is the least amount of teams get decided in the boardroom. Get as much decision making out of the boardroom as humanly
Right.
possible. That that is the biggest one. And you know what? If ESPN wants to decide 15 and 16, so be it. Okay, you pay the bill for this, you get your two. Okay, fine, whatever. And it's yeah, I mean it's just it just makes more sense to do it with the 4 2.5, and the way that I would do it, 2.5 2.5, and then um 3 and 1, just because it gets, like I said, gets the decision making out of the boardroom. Everybody knows exactly what they have to do to get in, and I'm sure it's going to end up happening, but more times than not, you're going to be able to decide 3, 4, 5 for the Big Ten, and two, three, 1, 2, 3, 4 in the ACC based on head-to-head tiebreak, head-to-head uh, matchups, and that it just, like I said, it just takes so much decision out of boardrooms and onto the field where people now, the teams now understand what they have to do to get in. There isn't a massive sea of gray of, oh, do we got to do this? Do we got to do that? How do we do this? That it just it makes it far clearer on what to do to get in. But like I said, you still have that one wild card, and you're going to be able to get that snarky comment from Lane Kiffin out of left field, and he's probably going to be shooting it at Mike Elko, and he's going to try to deflect it onto Brett Bielema, who's going to probably crap on Wisconsin for whatever reason. So, yeah, I
Yeah.
mean,
I mean, I feel like I feel like the number maybe the number decreases. Um, I just for me, I enjoy the chaos. So 5 and 11 for me, I was like, oh man, there'll still be some chaos, but I do understand the need to maybe limit their um. So in essence, they'd be really choosing
3 teams max.
one, two, three, four, well, like eight max, right? Because you got your four at larges, and then you're choosing between the last two of each of the power fours, right? Because it may not be clear
Well,
cut
I
between
mean,
4 and 5
in
on Big Ten SEC, and
in
it may not be clear
in
2, 3
theory,
on the So
those last well, those last 3 at-large bids or 2 at-large bids would be open to every other team in college football. So like you have a weird situation with the Pac-12 where you got an undefeated team, and then you have another team that's 11-1 and probably deserves at least a shot. While they can fight for an at-large bid.
uh,
So yeah, that's just
that
my
is coming back this year, isn't it? Isn't the pack on a thing?
yeah. I mean, yeah, they got
What it is,
I,
the pack 7?
I I think they have like 6 or 7 this year, but they're gonna get up to. I think they're gonna be back up to 10 after next year. I'd have to double check, but
Because they're getting like what 7 from the Mountain West, I think,
yeah,
and then they still have the two, right? They still have Washington State and they still have Oregon State, and so
so they're gonna
I know that from my last count, it was still like an odd number. Like I know there was an odd number still, so I was just wondering.
yeah. And
I'll look that up
if I were
later
to
because I
guess,
would love to see the pack come back.
if I were to guess, they're gonna be going after Memphis, from what I've heard. So
Mm, too bad. I was hoping for Jordan's narrative of UConn becoming off of independent and joining the pack.
no, actually, I think UConn's gonna end up probably joining the MAC because the MAC is losing Northern Illinois. So and they are gaining Temple, but I think or UConn could wiggle themselves into the ACC because of the basketball program. But yeah, so all right, you got any closing arguments for
Mm.
the 11-5?
Yeah, let's go chaos. I would love to see these guys get in a room and try to figure it out one more time at 5 and 11, and just see what kind of drama comes from that. I do believe that if they do go the 5 and 11 route, at least the seeding process will be a little bit cleaner than lining it up 1 through 16, based on what the CFP rankings are. So I think that will definitely help as far as having a more clear cut situation as far as that's concerned. Because I think we can all agree that there were some teams on that second line that probably deserved the first line situation. Um, and probably deserve to host the game, as opposed to just because you won your conference you get to host the game. So I think there's something to that. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what ends up going on. But I'm pro chaos for at least one more season.
Yeah, I mean, I get the love for chaos. I am absolutely loving what is going on in DC right now with all the chaos that's being caused down there. But with college football, yeah, I mean, make it leave the gray area out. Leave um and
Fair.
let and let it be decided on the field. I don't want an athletic director from from Central Michigan deciding whether it's going to be Utah or Florida State getting into the college football playoff. I want it decided on the 100 by 52 and a half rectangle. I want it decided on that. And you still have that little room. You still got that lit. You still got. Well, I was trying to be nice. I know you guys are going to go like 0 and 11. I know you guys are going to go 0 and 11 and 4.
Well, okay, hold on. Hold on. That's disrespectful. I think we finish 5-7 at least. 5-7 for sure. We got to win at least 5 games. I don't anticipate more than 5.
I have 0 and 11.
Matter of fact, I bet a blind test right now. I bet you our WL total is at least 4.5, without even looking. I want to say our futures is 4.5.
I have 0 and 11. I think one of the teams in the ACC just kind of gives mercy and says, you know what, we'll just count this one as a no contest. Because it ain't gonna be Florida. Florida ain't gonna be that merciful.
Wait, our win-loss odds are 7.5. Wow. They have faith.
I mean,
Let's go.
I mean, it all depends.
We might be back.
Yeah, on the long road back.
We might be back to respect.
All right,
bro. If we win 7 games, I'm throwing a party.
And
if you go 500, I'm throwing a party. Listen, the bar wasn't set very high last year. We all know that now.
And
I think we barely.
I've heard horror stories. I've heard
Southern Charleston. I can't even remember.
I've heard stories about Joe's parties. You end up in the Everglades and you can't find where your pants are.
Well, the snakes probably have them, but I digress. Anyway, we'll see what shakes out. I'll be very interested to watch my team personally, see if we can crack that top 2. But 6-6, and I'm throwing a party. I'm gonna be honest.
All right. Well, that's pretty much all the time we have. Where can they find you, Joe?
You can find me at Java Joe Sports on the X. Link to my writing portfolio is on there as well. A little bit of a dry season. You know how I am with baseball, and just kind of like I don't lock in until like September. So that being said, we're keeping an eye out on training camps for football. We're gonna see if people get signed. People who are holding out get signed. Shout out to Terry McLaurin, get your money. But yeah, that's what we're at right now. We're kind of just keeping an eye out, hoping that my team, the Giants, can field something worth watching, and then maybe I'll have something happy to talk about at Java Joe Sports on the X.
Yeah, I'd save your money on the NFL Red Zone. You ain't gonna see much Giants on there. But anyway, I'm Dillon Hildreth. This is the Dillon Hildreth Show. All the links for Joe will be
fun to watch, at least.
Yeah, that's what we'll call it. But all the links for Joe will be found in the description below. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you don't miss any football, racing, and if you're listening on podcast, leave a 5-star review and download the pod. See you next time.